Welcome to my channel. First, tell me, which country are you watching this video from? Comment down below, I really want to know. I always thought my sister and I were inseparable, that family meant trust, that love meant safety. But one day, everything changed. She didn't just cross a line, she erased it. She stole my identity, my credit, my life, and everyone I trusted told me to stay quiet. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking it would pass. But the more I stayed silent, the more control she gained. And slowly, I realized something terrifying. My silence wasn't protection. It was exactly what they were counting on. That's when I decided. I would take back everything and make them all see the storm they never expected. I had always believed that my sister and I shared a bond unlike any other. We laughed together, fought together, and even shared dreams about the future. But slowly, something began to shift, though at first I couldn't put my finger on it. It started with small things. She would borrow my clothes without asking, take my notes for school, or sneak money from my wallet. I told myself, maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I'm being too sensitive. After all, we were family. Family forgives, right? But the little things grew bigger. She would tell my friends about plans I made, presenting them as her ideas. She'd charm teachers, family members, even strangers, subtly undermining me in ways I didn't understand at first. Each smile she gave when taking credit for my work felt like a silent punch in my chest. And my family? Every time I mentioned it, they'd sigh and say, "It's fine, don't make a scene. Stay quiet. She's just your sister." I tried to obey. I swallowed my anger, ignored my hurt, convinced myself peace was more important than pride. But as days passed, I started noticing patterns. She was studying my habits, learning what I valued, observing my reactions. Every little act was calculated, and every time she succeeded without consequence, I felt smaller, almost invisible. At night, when the house was quiet and everyone else was asleep, I would sit alone, thinking, how had it come to this? How could someone I trusted so completely start stealing pieces of my life without me even noticing at first? A part of me wanted to scream, to confront her, but another part told me to stay silent, just like everyone else expected. By the end of those first weeks, the subtle betrayals had woven themselves into a tapestry of doubt and unease. My chest felt heavy with unspoken anger. I realized that ignoring it wasn't helping. Something inside me shifted, a knot of confusion, hurt, and anger that refused to go away. I was beginning to understand that this was more than carelessness. This was deliberate. And deep down, I knew that staying quiet, as everyone suggested, might be exactly what they wanted me to do. It started with small signs, messages I never sent, purchases I never made. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe a system error, or a simple misunderstanding. But the truth hit me like a punch to the gut. My sister had stolen my identity. She wasn't just borrowing things anymore. She was living my life, claiming my work, and spending my credit as if it was hers. I felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared. I looked at my family, expecting anger, support, maybe even outrage. But all I got was silence. "Stay quiet," they told me again. "Don't make a scene. It will pass." Stay quiet? How could I? How could I sit there and watch someone walk through my life, using my name, my money, my identity, while everyone told me to stay calm? Every fiber of my being screamed to act, to fight back, to scream the truth at the top of my lungs. But I obeyed. I kept my mouth shut, swallowing my fear and anger with each passing day. And the more I stayed quiet, the more audacious she became. She started logging into my accounts openly, buying things I couldn't afford, talking to my friends and colleagues as if she were me. Every time she posted a picture or sent a message, I felt a piece of myself vanish. My name wasn't mine anymore. It had been hijacked. I remember one evening sitting alone in my room, staring at my empty bank account and my messages, feeling like a ghost in my own life. Tears blurred my vision, but more than sadness, there was rage simmering inside me. Rage at her. Rage at my family for letting it happen. Rage at myself for letting it go on so long. And then, slowly, a realization settled in. My silence, the same silence everyone praised me for, was exactly what they were counting on. My quiet compliance wasn't protecting peace, it was enabling her. They wanted me to be small, powerless, invisible, because that was easier than confronting the truth. I clenched my fists, feeling my heartbeat echo in my ears. I would not be invisible anymore. I could not remain silent. And in that moment, I promised myself something I had never promised before. I would reclaim my life, my identity, and my voice, no matter the cost. The anger that once threatened to consume me now transformed into something sharper, colder, more precise. It wasn't just anger. It was a plan, a slow-burning fire of determination. She had taken my life, but she had also underestimated me. Weeks turned into months, and every day felt heavier than the last. My sister didn't just steal my identity, she flaunted it. She laughed with my friends, took credit for my work, spent my money without a second thought, and strutted through life as if she had every right to it. Every time I saw her smiling, I felt a sharp pang in my chest, like someone had carved it out and replaced it with ice. I began to notice how everyone around me reacted. Friends who once supported me now looked confused or hesitant. They didn't want to take sides. Even strangers treated her as if she were me. And my family? They still told me to stay quiet, as though my pain was my own fault. Their words became a cage, locking me into a role I had never asked for, powerless, silenced, invisible. Some nights I couldn't sleep. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every insult, every stolen moment, every act of betrayal. My heart ached with a mixture of sadness and rage. I felt trapped in a life that was slowly being rewritten by someone else. I questioned myself constantly. Was I too weak? Too naive? Too obedient to stand up for myself? But amidst the tears and despair, a strange clarity began to form. I saw patterns in her actions, the way she flaunted her power, the small mistakes she made in arrogance. Every careless word, every boastful smile, every person who helped her unknowingly became pieces of a puzzle. And with every piece, the fire inside me grew hotter, sharper. I realized something chilling. The more I stayed quiet, the more everyone relied on my silence. My family, my friends, the world around me. They were all complicit in my erasure. My anger was no longer aimless. It became focused, like a weapon I was learning to wield. For the first time, I understood that my breakdown wasn't a weakness. It was a signal, a turning point. The hurt, the betrayal, the isolation, all of it was preparing me. Preparing me to rise, to fight, to reclaim what was stolen. And in the quiet moments, I made a promise to myself. I would no longer be invisible. I would not allow anyone to erase me from my own life. The pain I felt now would one day become the fire that forged my revenge. The days of silent suffering were over. I began to watch her closely. Every move, every word, every interaction. Her confidence, her arrogance, even her small mistakes. Nothing escaped my notice. I realized that for all her power over my life, she had weaknesses, blind spots, and habits I could use against her. I studied her routines. When she was careless, when she boasted too much, when she assumed no one was paying attention. And I noted everything. Every transaction, every message, every lie she told became a clue in the puzzle I was determined to solve. For the first time, anger transformed into clarity. It was no longer just emotional pain. It was strategy. I would not confront her blindly. I would not act recklessly. I would strike when the time was perfect, precise, calculated, and unavoidable. Even my family became part of the observation. Their silence, their lack of support, their insistence that I stay quiet, all of it painted a picture. They were not enemies exactly, but they were obstacles I needed to navigate. I couldn't afford mistakes. Every step had to be deliberate. I started with small victories. I changed my passwords quietly, retrieved minor accounts she had taken over, and tested her reactions. She noticed, of course, but she dismissed them as coincidences or mistakes. That was my advantage. She underestimated me. At night, I would sit alone planning the next move. I imagined confronting her, exposing her lies, taking back what was mine. The fire inside me had grown colder and sharper. No longer blind rage, but a calculated, simmering storm. I was learning patience, precision, and the art of timing. I realized something essential. Revenge wouldn't be about chaos or screaming. It would be about reclaiming control, step by step, while she believed she was still winning. Every piece of her arrogance would become her downfall. By the end of those weeks of observation and planning, I felt a strange calm. The chaos of my emotions had turned into a weapon. The hurt, the betrayal, the endless sleepless nights, all of it had prepared me. I wasn't the powerless one anymore. I was the storm she never saw coming. The day I had been preparing for didn't arrive suddenly. It grew slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor, getting longer and darker until it finally touched my feet. I woke up with a calmness I hadn't felt in months. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My heart wasn't confused. Everything inside me felt aligned, ready. I started with the foundation, the things she depended on. Quietly, without warning, I took back control of my accounts. Bank, email, social media. Every password she thought she owned evaporated in seconds. I had spent weeks collecting proof, screenshots, timestamps, a trail she couldn't erase. She noticed, of course. Her first reaction was confusion, then irritation. She tried logging in again and again, thinking maybe it was a glitch. When she came asking why her access wasn't working, I just watched her. The same girl who once strutted around wearing my identity now stood unsure, unsettled. But I didn't respond. Silence. The same thing everyone once used against me had now become my weapon. My next move was deeper. I spoke to the people who mattered. The ones she lied to, manipulated, impressed with stolen achievements. I didn't shout. I didn't blame. I simply showed them the truth. Quiet, undeniable proof. The kind of reality no lie can survive. One by one, the people who once believed in her charm stepped back. Her circle shrank. Her confidence cracked. And for the first time, she felt what I had felt for months: doubt, fear, uncertainty. I watched her unravel piece by piece. She tried to hide her panic behind anger. She blamed everyone except herself. But I stayed calm. My silence, my patience, my strategy, everything was working exactly as planned. Then came the final step. The confrontation. Not loud, not messy, but precise. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to explain myself. I simply laid out everything she had stolen. My identity, my credit, my name, and exposed her for what she had become. Her face lost its usual confidence. The girl who once believed she could walk through my life without consequences now stood cornered by the truth she could no longer twist. My family watched. Their silence, the silence they used to control me, shattered under the weight of what they had ignored. In that moment, I realized something powerful. Revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, controlled, and devastating. And I wasn't done yet. The last phase of my plan wasn't about anger anymore. It was about truth, sharp, undeniable, and final. I had spent months being erased, pushed aside, silenced. Now it was her turn to face everything she thought she had escaped. When everything came to light, she tried to defend herself the same way she always did, with charm, excuses, and half-truths. But this time, no one was listening. My family, who once told me to stay quiet, now sat in uncomfortable silence, watching the daughter they protected fall apart under the weight of her own choices. I didn't interrupt her. I didn't shout. I simply watched. The same quiet they forced on me had become her mirror now, showing her exactly what kind of person she had become. Her voice cracked. Her lies tangled. She panicked when she realized the control she once held over my life had slipped out of her hands forever. And for the first time, she experienced the fear she had planted in me for so long, the fear of losing everything. When I spoke, my voice was calm, steady. I told her I was reclaiming my identity, legally, financially, emotionally. I had already secured my accounts, corrected the records, filed the reports, and severed every path she used to walk into my life. There was no screaming, no chaos, just consequences. And she felt every single one of them. Her friends turned away. Her reputation collapsed. The confidence she used as armor cracked open. She wasn't the center of attention anymore. She was the cautionary tale everyone whispered about. My revenge didn't come from hurting her. It came from taking back everything she stole and leaving her with exactly what she built for herself. Nothing. As I walked away that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. Not because everything was perfect now, but because I had reclaimed my voice, my life, my identity. I finally understood. Silence was never my weakness. It was the weapon I learned to turn back on them. And the storm they never believed I could create finally arrived. Months of silence, betrayal, and stolen moments had led to this. My sister, once confident and untouchable, finally faced the consequences of her actions. She tried to defend herself with lies and charm, but no one believed her anymore. My family, who had once told me to stay quiet, now sat in uneasy silence as the truth unfolded. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. I simply exposed everything she had taken: my identity, my money, my achievements, leaving no room for excuses. She faltered. For the first time, she felt the fear, doubt, and helplessness she had imposed on me. My revenge wasn't about hurting her. It was about reclaiming what was mine and letting her see the consequences of her arrogance. My accounts were secure. My reputation restored. Every lie she had lived in was now undone. I walked away calmly, finally free. The storm they never expected, born from my silence, patience, and strategy, had arrived. And I realized silence was never weakness. It was my weapon.